Fun to be back here. This is my second year doing this. For those of you that don't know me, does anybody here know me? Do I know you? You know me?
Nope.
I know you? Okay, all right, sorry. I get to do this with parents during orientation, and it's really just like 15 minutes of stand-up comedy. I haven't quite gotten there yet with this presentation, because sometimes this isn't that funny, but... So my name is Jimmy. I'm the case manager in the Office of Institutional Equity and Compliance. I've been doing that for a couple of months now. Before that, I was in off-campus life, in student life, so if you have questions about that, I can answer those questions as well.
Hey, I'm Colleen. She, her, hers. I am the investigative coordinator and trainer in OIEC.
Cool. We'll go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about sexual misconduct and bystander intervention. I think we're also going to talk about responsible employee stuff as well. Do you hear is there kind of a little, do you hear that? Is that just me? That's just me? Okay, all right. So this is our org chart, just so you kind of have an idea of who you are working with and what our office is. We all are underneath Katrina, the VP for Community and Climate. And then Larry Lofton is our Title IX coordinator and equity officer on campus. Our office doesn't just investigate sexual misconduct or sexual assault. We also investigate all cases of discrimination on campus. So there are a number of different protected classes that we would address if any of that stuff came up. So it's good for you to know that as well. And then Colleen's an investigator. Becky Brookhammer is another one of our investigators. And then I am the case manager in the office. And yeah, so how many of you are familiar with Title IX or have an idea what Title IX is? Okay, here's my kind of flip question, right? So if we asked your parents what Title IX was, what would they say?
Sports.
Sports. What do you say it is?
More than that.
Investigations. Okay, right. So less than 40 words. This is Title IX of the Educational Amendments of 1972. And I'm just going to read it to you just so you know what it is. No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, which also includes sex, sexual identity, gender identity, expression, gender expression, a whole lot of things. I always forget. There's like 6 of them. Is that?
You got them all.
That's 5. Okay, I got them all. Okay. So no person on the basis of sex shall be excluded from participation in or be denied the benefits of or subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance, which is us, UNC. So we get federal financial assistance, and because of that, we are subject to Title IX. So Title IX protects everyone in the community of bears. It doesn't matter where sex discrimination has happened. If it happened to a member of our community, we must address it. I'm pretty simple-minded, okay? Maybe even a little dumb. I memorize, this is how I memorize, or how I think of Title IX. Stop, remedy, prevent. Okay, you want to say it with me? Stop, remedy, prevent. That's what we do. We want to stop discrimination that's happening, we want to remedy the effects of it, and then we also want to prevent its future occurrence. Why this is important. There may be some bears who have been impacted by incidents in the past. Title IX, we are responsible for not so much where something happened, but who was involved. So Title IX follows you into the past. We have responsibility for stuff that's happened in the past. We want to remedy the effect of things that have happened in the past. We have really great resources on campus to be able to do that. And then it's not really so much about like, did it happen on campus, did it happen off campus? It's who, right? It's our community of bears. Anything else you want to add to that? Nope? Okay. So, pop quiz time. Are you ready for this? These aren't that hard, okay? I know you're sports people, but come on, these aren't that hard. Title IX is a federal, state, local, or made-up law? Federal, that's right. Okay, Title IX prohibits sex discrimination in athletics, K-12 schools. All the above? All of the above. Great work. Wow, smarty pants. Okay. Title IX applies to anyone and everyone. Wow. I'm super impressed. How many of you remember the video that we used to show that had like the fast typing people. Yeah, so we don't type like that. That just creates problems. Okay, where is UNC responsible for enforcing Title IX?
On campus.
Maybe not. Not just on campus. Where? Anywhere and everywhere? Everywhere and everything connected to the institution. So it's you. You are the institution. We enforce it wherever you are. Does that make sense? Okay. If an institution knows or reasonably should have known about sexual misconduct, Title IX requires us to... I just gave you the answer. What was it? Okay, well, how about we do a hand raise for this one? Because I'm getting some muddled answers.
We got it over here.
What did they... Stop, remedy, prevent. I gave you the answer. All right. Stop sex discrimination, remedy its effect, and prevent its recurrence. That's what we are tasked with. Okay. Sex discrimination is also referred to as sexual misconduct. There we go. That is the word that we use on campus. It covers a lot of different things, and we'll talk about what that is in the next slide. We're gonna watch the video. Okay. Is that what's next?
Yeah.
So this is a video that was produced by Bears. It stars Bears. You might recognize some people. How many of you are, anybody here, a first year student? Nobody? Everybody? Did you watch this video in orientation? You did? Okay, so it's a really cool video. Do we have volume? Do I need to hold it up to? Up and to the left. Up. It's playing.
We should talk.
We should talk.
We should talk. I want to talk about.
I want to talk about.
I want to talk about. We need to talk about consent, which may seem hard. We don't talk about it enough.
Sometimes we hear it in the news, but we should be talking about it. It's not a box to check or something to get out of the way.
It's about respect and listening.
It's communicating openly.
And it's how to have good sex.
Really good sex. I'd like to talk about that.
I vote we talk about that.
And we will. But first, let's get some things clear.
Consent means you have ownership of your body. You have agency all the time.
And nothing can ever change that. Not what you wear, not what you've been drinking.
Not where you are or what time it is.
Nothing.
Consent is something you own and share. And you always have the right to choose what you share.
Just because you give consent to one thing doesn't mean that somebody has full reign of your body.
So if you feel like the vibes have changed, or you're unsure, getting mixed signals, you want to check in.
Communicating ensures everybody is safe and feels respected. It is also the key to amazing sex.
Because sex should be good. And good sex is great.
Like really, really great.
You're in tune with the other person. So how do we do this? How do you know if you have consent?
You've got to pay attention.
It can be verbal or nonverbal. Like yes.
Yes.
But no matter what, it's clear cut.
No.
Hell no.
Consent is simply asking what someone likes or doesn't like. We do this all the time.
Like ordering pizza. Do you want hand tossed or regular?
Sausage or no sausage.
Communicate with your partner.
Or partners.
How are you feeling? How are they feeling? Do they seem conflicted, uncomfortable, or tense?
Or even scared.
Check in.
And if you're not sure, ask. Is this okay? Can I do this?
They'll be glad you asked.
Help your partner out by being clear about what your consent is as well. I don't want that. Why don't we try something else?
Let's stop.
You don't have to feel shy or worried about what they'll think. Everyone should be enjoying themselves. So guide them, let them know what you like.
And if you don't know, you can find out together.
Being open and building trust can help you try new things. And new things can be very fun.
Ask her.
Ask them.
Ask him.
And listen.
And listen. Consent is mutual communication. If it's not mutual or if your partner cannot communicate actively,
Because if they're asleep or passed out, if they're wasted or high, or both, then that's not consent.
Consent is not imposing your will on someone and having them just not resist.
Consent means that the other person wants to be doing the thing that you're doing. End of story.
all the sex that is had should be sex that is wanted.
Find out what consent means to you and your partner.
Consent is not just a question of laws and policies. And not just who has permission to do what.
Consent is the basis for a healthy and happy sex life.
Whether you're having sex or not, it's okay if you are. And it's okay if you're not.
The only thing that's not okay is someone else making that choice for you.
If you have any questions, if you feel like you're in a gray area or want to learn about how UNC defines consent,
You can check out the Assault Survivors Advocacy Program and the Office of Institutional Equity and Compliance at UNC.
Let's talk about consent.
let's talk about consent.
Let's talk about consent.
Because we have to.
Because we have to.
Because we need to.
And because we want to.
Okay, I like that video. I think it was a really cool video. So, Colleen and some other folks put that together this last spring, and I think it's lots of students have seen it, and so it's a good conversation starter. So, can somebody give me some examples? We're just going to do a response. Just call them out. What are some examples of some sexual misconduct behaviors? There's some definitely low-hanging fruit out there on this one, so don't be afraid to yell out whatever you think it is. So. Catcalling, yep, we hear a lot about that on campus. So, what else? Come on. What?
Stalking.
Stalking, definitely. What else? Yeah. Unwanted physical contact, that's right. What else? They're literally lower hanging fruit than all of these. Staring, yes. What's amazing to me is that nobody actually wants to say the word, right? Rape. It's definitely one of them. What else?
Voyeurism.
Voyeurism. Put the list up. Does anybody, do you know what voyeurism is? Do people know what that is? I mean, peeping, right? Watching somebody without their consent. Dating, partner violence, stalking, suggested sounds with catcalls. Telling sexual stories or jokes or gossiping about a person's sex life, that's a time and place issue too. Those can both create a hostile environment. So if you notice somebody telling sexual stories or gossiping about somebody's sex life here in the rec center, that could create a space for somebody where they don't want to enjoy their rec center, or they can't exit the rec center. So the left side are things that are really always and forever going to be things that are policy violations. The right side here are the things that require consent. So that it's totally okay for two consenting adults to be okay with touching and grabbing. It's totally okay for them to make comments about appearance or sexual looks and staring and winking or sending sexually oriented videos or images. The problem becomes when that stuff is non-consensual. So if you are, you're doing your Tinder thing and then you open with like the sexually explicit image, your classic dick pic, right? Not a good thing to open with, just a heads up. That's non-consensual, right? And so that's going to be a policy violation. The other thing is if you share those things consensually with a partner and then something happens, maybe the partner is using those things against you to coerce you to stay in the relationship, says, hey, I'm going to share these images online unless you stay with me, or we remain in the relationship. That's where the consensuality gets tossed out the window and it becomes a problem. Invitations or pressures for favors and or dates. Hey, Colleen, you want to get some pie? Hey, Colleen, there's a really great pie place here in town. It's called Fat Albert's. Have you ever been?
I have, and I don't want to go with you.
Hey, Colleen, do you like pizza?
I hate pizza.
Please? All right. This is one of those things I think that people don't recognize, and oftentimes, like men, we get the messaging, hey, you have to be persistent, you have to pursue, right? That's not necessarily a good thing. Take the no, all right? References to a person as a hottie or slut also would be, you can totally do that if you have consent. So, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, and I would just say the last one can also contribute to a hostile environment, again, depending on time and place of how that's shared. And again, that language can be related to sex, gender, gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation. So, great, now you're gonna leave me up here. And so this last bullet point, we could share the entire contents of Urban Dictionary and spend 10 hours on just how words we use are gendered and may impact our climate. So Lots of stuff going on here. Any questions about some of these behaviors? Okay. So back to the pop quiz. Fill in the blanks for us. Great. If you see something, say something. Don't leave a fellow bear in a bad situation. Who has heard of the bystander effect? Lots of you. Someone tell me about the bystander effect. Yeah.
You, like, even if you're witnessing something that, like, you know is wrong happening, you kind of are like, oh, well, someone else will see it and do something. Someone else will do something. Maybe I'm not seeing what I think I'm seeing. Like, that's not my problem.
Yeah, totally. So the bystander effect is founded in this idea of the diffusion of responsibility. And so if I see something that's a problem and there are other people around, my brain goes, oh, there's lots of people here, like someone else has got this handled. But here's the issue. So if I am the only one who witnesses something, 85% of the time I'm likely to intervene in that situation. And so if this situation would not happen, if Chris decides to like punch Jimmy in the face, great. 85% of the time I'm gonna be like, Cobb, knock it off, don't do that if it's just me watching. But if that number of us witnessing that scenario goes up to 5, the likelihood that any one of us individually intervenes goes down to 31%. And so we could all be watching this happen, and it's closer to like, a third of the time I might jump in and keep Jimmy from being punched in the face. Personal safety is obviously a concern there, but we need to be cognizant of this because we have a tendency to go, there's lots of us here, there's safety in numbers, someone will do something. But it won't happen unless I assume personal responsibility and choose to act. So here are some of the barriers to intervention up here. We oftentimes think someone else will, we might be unsure, we might feel uncomfortable about how to do so. We might think it's not our problem, and something we get a lot, especially with students and student employees that we do this training with, is we don't want to violate privacy or upset anyone. And so there are a few different scenarios that we talk about quite a bit. One is like a potential sex assault scenario. So you are at a party, you see your friend taking a drunk person upstairs with them or on a walk. I might not want to piss off my friend by being like, this isn't a good idea, bud. Like, get their number and wait until they're sober. But how do we go, okay, the consequences of this if I don't step in might be pretty high. So is it worth someone being mad at me if I've prevented this thing from happening? With that scenario in particular, it's also good to highlight a couple other things. So when we do this training and folks are talking about that scenario, lots of times students are like, well, if they're my friend and I know they know each other, it's totally fine. Not to make you all terrified. 100% of the cases we saw last year involve students who knew each other. Like, I'm not trying to say that our friends are dangerous, but like, statistically you are far more likely to be assaulted by someone you know. And that alcohol component is genderless. And what I mean by that is like, well, if it's my female friend taking my male friend upstairs, whatever. That's a really dangerous assumption because it makes it sound like, number one, men couldn't be sexually assaulted, which they can be. And also it's sort of this like gendered stereotype of like, men always want sex and women are the gatekeepers of sex. And so when we are talking about what could be a policy violation or not, like that's how we're looking at it. Is this behavior, when alcohol is involved, do they have the capacity to make an informed decision? Here are some of the steps to intervention. So the first is you have to notice what's going on. Sometimes it's really easy to be oblivious to what's happening around us. We have to decide if what's happening is a problem or an emergency. So what's the difference for you? Like, how would some of you define like problem versus emergency? Yeah?
The well-being and safety of the person, if that's been crossed yet.
Yeah, so like, if someone's safety is immediately threatened, that's probably an emergency. Others? Urgency, like, if this continues, like how fast does the consequence come might also influence it. Step 3 is to assume that personal responsibility. And so we talk a lot about what that means as members of the community of bears, and how does that mean that I can assume responsibility for the well-being of my friends and folks I know. But here's the other thing. Like, how do you think about it? Like, even if I don't know them, how can I help them right now? Does it matter if I know them? Or does it matter that this is another human who shares planet Earth with me and they need assistance that I can maybe provide? Number 4 is know how to help. And that's why we do presentations like these, is because we want you to know what tools and what resources are available to you to help in these situations. And then 5 is actually implementing that help. So in a lot of situations, people will go through all 4 steps and then drop off before the last one. Jimmy, do you want to talk about your dodgeball strategies of intervention? Yes, those, all the Ds. I think you should do the strategies and then we do these. No, you're...
We do this real well. Intervention strategies, right. Okay, because we don't talk about that, but we do talk about that. What?
You're talking about it right now?
I'm talking about it right now. Intervention strategies. Are you going to edit this out? Is this going to be in the video?
It's all on.
You have a pro that can take care of this?
Yeah.
No? Damn it. Okay. Intervention strategies. So I like to call it a matrix. Like there's a matrix of direct and indirect, active and passive, right? So a very direct, active intervention would be just calling somebody out. We actually call that direct. So direct intervention.
Cop, don't punch Jimmy in the face.
Don't punch me in the face. We used to use an example. You were in the hallway, obviously not doing your job. So, kidding. We love Cobb. It's like the greatest. So funny. Something a little bit more indirect, but maybe a little bit more passive would be delegate. Can maybe somebody give me an example of how you would delegate the situation where Cobb is pummeling my face? That's a direct intervention. That's a direct call out. John, oh, you got John to do it. Okay. Hey, John, come help me. Let's go. And also, I think, hey, John, you're a little bit bigger. Take care of this. Right? So, okay, that is a good That's a great example of delegation. Does that make sense? So it's calling somebody alongside you to help or sending somebody else to do it. The third one is distraction, which I like. It also can escalate a situation at times, though, so you have to use it kind of sparingly. Can somebody give me an example of a distraction? Not staff. You guys need to. Staff, yeah.
If you're in a work environment and someone's about to clock the other employee,
Yeah.
you go up to that person, I need help with this paperwork, or I
Yeah.
have someone at the front desk and someone here.
Yeah.
Help me.
That's perfect. I love that. Like, our distractions are usually a little bit more silly. It's like, hey, does anybody know where I can go get tacos? Or let's start a dance party. Or sometimes those things can escalate situations, though, so you do have to use them a little bit sparingly. When we do this with first-year students during orientation, there's a lot of really, really great distraction interventions. Distraction interventions are typically the things you can just come up with immediately, like,
Let's do a conga
let's do a conga line because they're dancing too close, or slap a shot out of his hand, or like that kind of stuff. It is okay, it works, it's effective, but at the same time, if you're at a party, you see somebody who's drunk about to take a shot and you slap the shot out of your hands, you're probably going to get punched by Cobb. So, which is not, or not at all, sorry. We want to de-escalate situations. So it's a matter of matching the level of urgency and the level of emergency with the type of intervention that you choose. There are going to be times when you're going to say, like, that is something weird going on there, and they look like they're about to go, like, beat the total crud out of each other. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to intervene. I might try and call it out, but I also might call campus PD to come help us with the situation. So you're matching the urgency and the emergency to the intervention. Is that? Yep. And then the fourth one is to actually do nothing. And we don't like that strategy, but it is obviously an option when it comes to intervention. So, okay.
You want to switch back, or do you want to do this?
Well, I can keep going. It doesn't matter. I feel like you handed this mic to me because you didn't want to. Your coffee's right here. So,
If you see the option of me spilling my coffee as an example several times as a distraction, because I'm really clumsy, so it plays well.
does.
I ran into a pillar yesterday.
Okay. Back to our pop quiz. Who can be confidential resources on campus? There's 3 of them. ASAP is one. ASAP, what is ASAP? What's that stand for? Okay, good, thank you. How many of you have ASAP's hotline in your telephone for your friends? 4040, 351-4040. It's a good thing to have that in your phone because you never know if you'll need to use it. What's the second one? What? Psych services. Can you tell me about psych services?
They charge you a fee though if they're contracted by the schools.
Yeah, so they're actually graduate interns in one of the graduate programs here on campus. They aren't a free service because they aren't a fee-funded program. So, psych services, it's in McKee. It is a low-cost option. If you are involved in a situation with somebody who is not a student or somebody who is not a student needs those resources, psych services is a great option. So, ASAP psych services, and what's the third option? Counseling center. Is the counseling center free?
Yes.
Yes. Do you know when counseling center drop-in hours are? Nope. 8 to 5, it's actually 1 to 4, Monday through Friday. So you can take anybody, they will have somebody there that they can talk to, 1 to 4, Monday through Friday. One of the things that we also suggest when, if somebody is about to tell, well, are we talking about responsible employees?
Hold on.
I'll get there, we'll talk about it.
These are
So-
very indirect intervention strategies and resources.
Yes, free ASAP, free counseling center. ASAP is really great too because they're mobile, so they will meet you wherever. If you decide, hey, I'm not real comfortable meeting on campus, I want to meet down at the Blue Mug, or I want to meet at DPDO, I don't know. They will go there, and they're 24 hours. So they're a student, it's a student-run program. It's one of the oldest student-run programs in the state. They get really exceptional training, hours and hours of it, to do what they do. So, next question. Okay, reporting. All responsible employees except healthcare professionals and those who are statutorily barred from disclosing, those 3 confidential resources, must report knowledge of a sexual misconduct. Are you all responsible employees? Yes. So those of you that have been around, where you've heard this last year, has anybody ever walked into Target just wearing red? And just regretted it instantly? How many of these people here actually work at Target? Should we do this? This one? This one? I think they may. What about this one? No? That's just from the Kohl's website. And this is just, those are unfortunately baggy. This is a sitcom from the UK, I believe, right? Is that from the UK?
I don't know.
We don't know. It looks British. Okay.
Here's what here.
Yeah, you.
Oh my gosh.
I
We got very distracted about these.
Shirts. Okay, here's the deal. So the reason that you all are responsible employees and why any employee at UNC is one is because that is defined as someone who a student, faculty, or staff member thinks might know what to do. Does that make sense? So it's not whether you actually have the knowledge or authority to address sexual misconduct. It's you are a responsible employee if it's reasonable that someone thinks you know what to do. It's a really big bucket. And so because you're paid by the institution, because you wear a name tag, because we are all running around with red shirts on, don't take that in the Star Trek way. That's a reference I do get. Because that's the situation we're in, it's reasonable that folks on our campus think we can help in these situations. You want to go to the next one? So because of our responsible employee obligations, if someone shares with you or you become aware of sexual misconduct, you immediately have to report that to the Title IX coordinator. And again, that is so we can stop, remedy, and prevent. That's the point of us receiving any information from you and us collaborating in that process, is to make sure that anyone who needs help knows where they can get it from. I know that in your roles, you all also have to mandate report some other things, and so I'll probably let pro staff jump in. But what I want to be sure you all know is basically get some language ready for how to talk to folks in these situations about, like, if you share something with me related to sexual misconduct or harm to yourself or others, I have to share that information with my supervisor or someone else on campus so that you can get the support you need. And so we don't want it to be like someone comes to you with a problem and you go, la la la, don't tell me because I have to report. It's, I'm a student employee. I'm not the best person to assist you with this. I need to tell someone else so that you can get the support that you're entitled to on our campus through the resources we have available. So specifically for you all, what are some of the things that you may have to report, and how does this show up in your roles through Campus Rec? I think you all introduced a few really interesting dynamics that other staff members on campus don't have. What are those? What is unique to you?
Locker rooms?
Locker rooms, good. So like most of our faculty members who sit through this presentation never have to go through the scenario of, like, if I'm working and someone tells me someone was staring at me while I was changing and it made me uncomfortable. Like, most people don't have to address that situation, but you all do. Where are my outdoor pursuits folks? How many of you do overnights? Overnights in weird remote locations. Yeah, not everyone does that. What else? Yeah.
I know at the rec center there are like certain things you can't wear because of the equipment and like germs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
As employees, we have to enforce that.
Yeah, and so that's a great point and a really important equity piece. So for those of you who maybe didn't hear, it was that in the rec center, there's a dress code. There's a mandatory dress code for safety reasons to use certain pieces of equipment. I'll tell you right now that if there is a shirtless dude using a piece of equipment and that doesn't get reported, but a female identified person wearing only a sports bra with like no shirt and no sleeves, and that situation gets reported, we have introduced a potential gender-based discrimination scenario, right? So like, it's really important that when you all are enforcing those policies, you're doing so equitably, like regardless of gender, these are the rules. Good. Other ideas? There was another hand over here somewhere. Yeah. Yeah, so eating disorders and over-exercising. And I love it when we talk about that during this presentation because there are definitely some gendered components for that. And again,